This Week in Startups is brought to you by DigitalOcean. DigitalOcean is the fastest growing cloud infrastructure provider built for developers. With state-of-the-art data centers around the world, DigitalOcean is laser focused on its mission to simplify infrastructure for development teams. Visit digitalocean.com/twist and get $10 credit to spin up a server in 55 seconds. And InVision. Find out why so many hot startups are using InVision to prototype, present, and collaborate on design in real time. Sign up for a 90-day free trial today at envisionapp.com/twist.
Hey everybody, a very special episode 600 of This Week in Startups. I can't believe we've done 600 episodes. I've loved all of them. What a delight it's been to do 600 episodes of this program. Anyway, amazing guest. Really makes sense that he is the 600th guest or 600th episode featured guest. Eric Ries of the Lean Startup is on the program today. It's a live This Week in Startups we held here at WeWork, and we had tons of questions from the audience. We talked about his new book, and it's really just an amazing episode for anybody who is trying to build a company using the Lean Startup methodology. We go through his book, his next book, and we talk about things he would actually change in the book if he could. In other words, knowing what he knows now, what would he have changed in the Lean Startup? And what has he learned in the last couple of years from all the different large companies and small companies that have been emailing him and that he's been visiting? It's a really, if you love the book Lean Startup, this is going to be an episode you're going to watch twice. If you don't have the book Lean Startup yet, go buy it and watch the episode. Your mind is going to be blown. It's essential reading, essential watching for anybody who is trying to build a startup and trying to change the world. Enjoy episode 600 of This Week in Startups.
That's what it's all about, man. They said money is the root of all evil. What? Funny how it feeds my people. Yeah. We ain't gonna live like equals until we get the money, spend the money, and defeat you. Yeah. Money is the root of all evil. What? Funny how it feeds my people. Yeah. We ain't gonna live like equals until we get the money, spend the money, and defeat you.
We don't do these that often. We should do them more often. We do them once every couple of months, and we try to make it something really special. And we did one with Amir from Sixth Sense down in Mountain View. We did one, Tim Ferriss at Pivotal. We do them when we have somebody really great, and obviously Eric's super great, and he brings a big crowd. I think 500 people RSVP'd for this, and there's some people downstairs in the simulcast room. Thanks to my friend David Un from Samsung. He's been an old friend of mine. Over 2 or 3 companies he's worked at. We've known each other for 15 years. And I think Jacopo and Brendan spoke earlier. I didn't get to see it, but they did a pretty good job. I think people really enjoyed that. So we had some seminars earlier, and I heard those went well. And thanks to my friends at WeWork, they've been a great support of ours, letting us take over the building and all you guys wandering around, drinking the beer and all that stuff. So let me just start with a big round of applause for our friends at Samsung and WeWork for supporting the event. And let me bring up the man of the hour, Eric Ries. Come on up, Eric. All right.
Well,
all right. Yeah, you gotta
sort of. Now.
Yeah, we gotta just sort of we'll wheel you in.
Your equipment's better every time.
Well, you know what I find? If the audio is perfect, people love it. But if you fuck up audio, it just pisses people off so much. I just try to get the audio right. Everything else will fall into place.
Good job.
You have been working on this Kickstarter project and the conference and everything. It's really interesting. The Lean Startup book came out, and it didn't explode, did it, in the beginning? It sort of was like a slow cooker. Take people through that.
Well, at the time, I thought it was doing great. When it, it debuted strong and by publishing standards, so that means a few thousand people read it, and I was like, well, okay, my work here is done. That was great. Good experience. Yeah. It was I had a pretty successful blog at the time, and I was like, all right, I feel like I said what I needed to say, and I was very gratified. And then it just kept going. And every year I look back on what I was doing the previous year, and I'm like, wow, that seemed pretty good at the time, but now it's even more crazy, even bigger. And it's become more global. It's gone way out of Silicon Valley into other startup hubs. We've had so many larger companies start to adopt it and make it part of their day-to-day operating system. So it's I never really know what's next because it's been such a crazy ride.
What do you think is at its core, what the lean startup is about. You and I have had many conversations about this, but at its core, why do you think it resonates so deeply with so many people? Now looking back over, has it been 3 years or 4 years in the market?
Yeah, 4 years, just 4 years since the book was published. I like to think that people like science more than astrology. And, I just like, not to be controversial or anything, I know we live in America and people have all kinds of different beliefs, but like, especially in high technology fields and in most of business, people, when they're in the research lab, when they are trying to make new discoveries, they think science is a pretty good way to do it. And for some reason, our business culture has evolved into a place where we often, and I've been in a lot of research labs, university labs, work with all kinds of amazing technologists, and their first exposure to business is often, hey, I had this amazing breakthrough discovery thing that I've invented, and I want to turn it into a business. And it's like, okay, take everything you know about science and erase that. Now I need you to tell me what's going to happen in the future. And I want you to make it happen with the power of your mind. Okay, like with perseverance and vision and determination and kind of grit, and like depending on who exactly listened to the startup world, like exactly which personal attributes are absolutely essential. But the basic idea is if you have the right stuff, things happen in the future. And I don't know, when I was taught that the first time, I was like, okay, I guess that's what it means to be in business. I assumed that smarter people than me had kind of figured it out. And as we've seen, over the last few years, when you start to look at those practices through the lens of science, and bringing in, of course, as Lean Startup does, ideas from lean manufacturing and customer development and agile development. Like there's all this work we can draw on to say, wait a minute, that actually doesn't make a lot of sense. You can't predict the future, and less so every day. So, well, what do we do then? How do we make forecasts and plans, and how do we figure that out? So I feel like putting together a theory, and startup people tend to be more practical and not always like, oh, we're going to talk about theory and these abstract. I get that, but I feel like a little bit of theory goes a long way. To say like, here's an integrated set of practices that can help us answer what I always consider to be like the timeless, frustrating questions about entrepreneurship. Like, so-and-so is on stage and they made a lot of money. And they say, if I do what they did, I'll make a lot of money too. It's like, how do I know if that's true? How do I know that, first of all, that they even did what they said they did? Right? Like when you see what it says in the like Harvard Business case study, but like, is that really what happened? First time someone wrote a case study about me, I remember the case writer was like, okay, this dilemma you faced, it kind of seems like kind of obvious what the right thing to do was. I was like, oh, gee, thanks.
And you didn't do it.
yeah, exactly. So they're like, you mind if we change it a little bit to make it more complicated, difficult for the students? I was like, what do you mean? They're like, well, because like the term, it was like about which funding we should take. They're like, the terms were like this. Like, we're just going to change them up to make the terms different. And then I was like, but that's not what happened. They're like, yeah, but. So like, what does that have to do with anything? I was like, okay, that helps me understand why all these cases, like, great. So anyway,
they read really well.
Yeah, they're very interesting, and they present a really good, like they are fiction and very interesting fiction, and they're useful, educational. They have a pedagogical purpose. So
they're allegories.
Yeah, it's helpful, like mythology and stories and apprentice, like those things all have their place in this world. But then you're like, wait, well, but what happened to the science? Where's our respect for the truth and our desire to operate according to facts? So I feel like bringing that into the startup decision-making process, I feel like that allows what I'm saying to not just be about me and my idiosyncratic belief, but aligns this whole movement with a vast body of history and experience that says this is a better way of making decisions. Let's just apply what we've already learned as a civilization to this, which is actually a pretty important task. So I feel like that at the heart is what people are excited about.
And a lot of big companies are starting to do this. I was, hanging out with some of the big acronym companies, and they're talking and they're referencing like, well, what's the most efficient test to figure out if that's what people want? Let's have some landing pages. I mean, in a way, Unbounce and some of these landing page companies, I don't know if they predate the lean startup. Certainly landing pages existed for a decade.
Course, yeah.
And people were doing that. But there is a whole genre of tools now. Let's talk about some of the tools that when you see them, you go, wow, these tools are so helpful. And I know you're not endorsing any one.
Yeah, I have to be careful.
But there are tools that you see people using that you must go, wow, I see some of my work
amazing.
In them.
And
they are helpful.
And I'm officially neutral. There are no official tools of the Lean Startup movement.
Right.
Okay, so.
Yes.
But like it's important actually to just like if you just look at the context, this has all happened so quickly. When I was first doing split testing on for a tech product back in 2005-ish, people were like, what does that have to do with technology? It was considered really weird because split testing was like a direct marketing technique from the direct mail days. It was like this like cheesy marketing thing that people did to sell, crap in the back of catalogs. What is like until like high tech? So like here's how crazy it was. I was writing code in PHP at that time, and I had to write my own split testing framework because there wasn't one. I'm not talking about there was no Optimizely or there was no Mixpanel. Like there was no like open source, like here's a library to do it. I had to write my own like statistical significance, like calculations. I had to it didn't exist because like what did it have to do with writing websites, let alone any other kind of technology? And then, so it wasn't a thing. And it's amazing now to see like what we thought of as a minimum viable product in those days. I remember like when we built that startup in 2004, took us 6 months to ship the first product. And we were so pleased with ourselves. We thought that was amazing that we got it done so quickly.
2 quarters.
Yeah. I mean, it was like the previous startup we worked at, we had taken like 5 years. So we're like, hey, this is like a 10x improvement. That's awesome. And now, now someone read my book and they're like, hey, you took 6 months. So I took 6 months too. I'm just like, for a software product, give me a break. What, none of you, of course, took 6 months, but you have a friend who dragging their feet a little bit. So it's like now that would be embarrassing. So the quality of the tools is amazing. Obviously like, cloud hosting. I mean, we were racking physical servers in data centers. Like, not to be like, oh, we had to walk up, uphill both ways in the snow, whatever. But like, this wasn't like 1950. We're talking about like less than 10 years ago. It's an incredible explosion.
Yeah,
of
there was a
tools,
good 2 or 3 months of setting up basic infrastructure before you wrote one line of code. Before you pushed anything. It
was just your ante to do anything. Yeah, and this is something I think people I think have recognize what I call the rentership of the means of production. I'm going back to old Karl Marx idea. Whoever owns the means of production has the power, but like he never contemplated a world in which you could like whip out your credit card and like borrow the means of production like by the hour for like less than a cup of coffee.
And it would scale infinitely
and
without you ever doing any additional work.
And that's so like when we set up the first website for that product in 2004, I told my co-founders I was going to go online and rent some virtual server somewhere for like $50 a month. And they were like, that doesn't sound very serious. Like I thought we were going to like build a startup and raise all this money and do build. And I was like, yeah, but we didn't even have the language of minimum viable product. I was like, but like there's just, if nobody ever comes to our website, then this server will handle the traffic just fine.
Yeah.
And if the server can't handle it, then that would be a really nice problem to have because it means we actually have customers. So then we'll be able to do good things. And that was like, they were like, okay, I guess so. But that was the critical thing. I could rent this server, but like you could only put a couple thousand customers on it. And then you had to get more virtual servers. And then you had to basically stop everything you were doing, go rent a data center and like you had to like play catch up. And so many of the tools, I mean, you remember like not just the technical tools, the marketing tools. Like think about like, you were like, oh, I want to go do an ad campaign. Even an online ad campaign, God forbid, television came out, physical billboard campaign. You either had to do something really crappy and small, like I'm putting up flyers at Stanford or something, or do something super scalable and huge, but then that has huge upfront costs. You better know what you're talking about. The continuous path to scale that all of our tools and distribution channels have today is one of the more unheralded attributes that I think people just take so for granted. You can start, I mean, we did our first AdWords campaign. We spent $5 a day on AdWords. That was a total budget. It's all we could afford. And in those days, you could buy clicks for 5 cents a click. And like I wasn't a very good marketer. I didn't know anything about it. I was like, well, $5 a day means 100 people come to my website. That's it. And I was like, well, that's certainly good enough to get a statistically significant sample about whether they want to buy my product or not, especially since they didn't. That was very clear. The signal was really clear. I was like, well, I'm glad I didn't spend $5 million. $5 would get it done. But we use that same AdWords account, that same, basic customer acquisition strategy until we were spending millions of dollars a day. I mean, or millions of dollars a month probably. And so you could kind of scale it up before we had to go, we never really had to go to TV ads or in these other kind of really difficult channels. As you think about, Amazon Web Services and all the cloud providers, you think about all the marketing providers and all these tools, you could be using the same tools and technology and analytics from when you have no customers to when you're a very serious company.
All right, when we get back from this commercial break, I want you to answer the difficult question of, hey, if the lean startup methodology is so great, why doesn't a company like Apple really use it? They kind of put products out there, and Steve Jobs' position, and listen, he's much more successful than you and I combined, was, hey, I'm not going to test anything. You're going to eat what I put on the plate when we get back on This Week in Startups. Hey, everybody, I want to tell you about DigitalOcean, the best place for you to deploy your new application. It's super easy. It takes just 55 seconds to launch on an SSD drive in the cloud. Super fast, super easy. And hey, listen, they've got 550,000 developers using their product because it starts at just $5 a month. It's super easy to use, and the API is super slick. What more can I tell you about it? I mean, you can go and have a pre-configured one-click image of Node.js, Magento, or Docker, or you can do your own custom infrastructure. Pick what you want, obviously. Their clients include TaskRabbit, Universe.com, Flywheel, Compose, and us here at This Week in Startups. And with hourly pricing, you only pay for the resources you actually use, and you're going to get one clean bill. Go ahead and visit digitalocean.com/twist, digitalocean.com/twist for a $10 credit. And it's really full circle for us here at This Week in Startups because the CMO, Mitch, was a guest caller on This Week in Startups. And he asked me, Jason, what should I do with my career? And I said, join a high-growth startup. And he did, and he co-founded DigitalOcean. And now DigitalOcean has received tons of venture capital from people like Andreessen Horowitz, et cetera. And now they're a partner here on This Week in Startups, and we use their product. How full circle is that? The only thing that hasn't happened here is I haven't invested in the company yet. That's what's killing me. I'm reading this ad going, oh my God, I need to angel invest in this company. Anyway, listen, DigitalOcean's amazing. We use it. We love it. Any product that you hear me talk about, we only allow products to do a live read like this if we actually use them and love them here at This Week in Startups and myself. So that's the case certainly with DigitalOcean. We love the product. Go ahead and visit digitalocean.com/twist and get a $10 credit, and thank DigitalOcean on your Twitter handle. They're at DigitalOcean. Go follow them. They love to hear from that. And when I see a super fan do that, I always go and give a fist bump and heart it and star it on Twitter. And I personally really appreciate it when you thank the sponsors because they love to hear that our fans are so loyal. Okay, speaking of loyalty, let's get back to this amazing episode. Hey, everybody, welcome back to This Week in Startups. We're live at WeWork, thanks to our friends at the Samsung Global Innovation Center. My guest is the one, the only, Eric Ries, who, of course, is the author of The Lean Startup, How Today's Entrepreneurs Use Continuous Innovation to Create Radically Successful Businesses. And his upcoming book, The Leader's Guide, is coming out, had a unbelievable Kickstarter.
Well, then, thanks for your help.
Well, listen, it's not like I was even... Well, actually, what was I? It was like 3%.
Yeah, that's not bad.
That's nice. Not bad.
Hey, listen.
I mean, the thing that made me feel really good about it on an ego basis was... You had this like $5,000 lunch prize. I thought, well, this will be ridiculous. Nobody's going to do this. But some people did. Great. But then 2 or 3 more people did. And I actually got more than Mark Andreessen, where he had 2. Or maybe we tied.
I'm not naming any names here, but it was interesting. Yeah, you can say whatever you want. It was very interesting to see which rewards went fastest. And I mean, we had people sending me like very nasty emails that they didn't get to have lunch with Jason for $5,000 because it sold out so quickly.
I just want to say right now, if there's anybody here who wants to have dinner with me for $400, I know a great sushi bar. You can take Eric and I. No, I think it's great. You know why?
It was great.
Because
it was cool.
There are some people who've done well, and I guess a lunch with us would be fun to do if you've got all that free rolled cash because you made some Google stock. And we'll try. You and I are going to try to help them.
Yeah, I mean,
we're going to legitimately sit there and focus on their startup for an hour and a half or something.
That really was the idea of all the prizes in the campaign. And
that's worth it, maybe.
Yeah, we had some folks from Highway 1, the hardware incubator.
They're great.
They do a trip to China every year, and one of the prizes was people could go with them on their trip to China and see the supply chain.
Oh, wow.
We just got the report back from people that went on that trip, and I think they got their money's worth. So I feel good that people were buying something that wasn't just some like vanity exercise, but they actually could be legitimately helpful to their business.
But you set a target of like 50,000 or 100,000.
Oh yeah, it's funny. So here's how it happened. I was thinking, I should do a Kickstarter campaign. I always want to do it's like I got to eat my own dog food, right? So if I'm going to write a new book, I got to do a minimum viable product of it to make sure that the things that I'm writing actually work, and are actually true. That just seems like kind of obvious to me. And the traditional publishing process is you lock yourself in a dark room for multiple years and don't talk to any customers or anything. You just crank out the book and then you hope for the best. So it's like, that didn't seem like so lean. So I sent my friend Fred Wilson a note. I said, hey, I'm thinking maybe I should do a Kickstarter campaign. Do you think anybody over there, could help talk me through like what it would be? And he writes back, he's like, no problem. Yancey would love to talk to you, CEO, founder of Kickstarter.
There you go.
CC'd on the email. Yancey's like, sure. What's your phone number? I was like, okay. He calls me up. I'm thinking about doing this MVP. Yancey said, this is going to be the most successful publishing Kickstarter of all time. First thing he said to me on the phone. And I was like, I appreciate it. It's very flattering, Yancey. Like, that's, And I had to call him back after the campaign to be like, you were right. We cracked number one, displacing the Choose Your Own Adventure Hamlet, which it's actually also very good. But yeah, I mean, the response from the community to support the campaign was unbelievable. So yeah, it's a nice feeling as an author.
You're doing a conference. Give a little plug for that before we get to the Apple question. But you're doing a little conference later this month.
Yeah, every year we do a Lean Startup Conference. It is coming up in just about 2 weeks.
At Fort Mason.
At Fort Mason.
A great place to do events. We do ours there too.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. I think this is the 5th or 6th year we've done the conference, and just to kind of give a plug for it. It's a no hype, no launch zone. So it's exactly like. It's the peanut butter to Jason's jelly or whatever.
Yeah,
right?
We're launching a bunch of companies.
Exactly.
Just put your head down and study.
Yeah, so this is
learn.
all 100% case studies from entrepreneurs that you've heard about, famous people, and a lot of people that you haven't heard about, trying to talk about what is it actually like to try to apply these ideas.
Pretty
in the
affordable
trenches.
too. I mean, the price was a couple $100, right?
I don't know.
I think it's like $500.
Yeah, so leanstartup.co.
Yeah.
This is not TechCrunch Disrupt or anything like that.
Yeah, you're not paying $3,000 or $4,000.
And look, and we don't begrudge those other conferences, their success.
I do.
I've heard.
Yeah.
But I think that what I always wanted as an entrepreneur was to be in a space where we could have like a substantive conversation about how do I know that this random advice someone's giving me is correct. Not just like, oh, it sounds good. Oh, like, oh, you know, whatever. But like, let's actually get together and have a community of people come together and talk seriously about
I was impressed.
How it works.
I looked at, as a fellow conference producer, I looked at it and I said, something I would want to attend. I would, if one of my startups said, hey, is this worth, forget about the whatever, couple $100 for a ticket, but is it worth my time 2 days out of the office to do this? I said, absolutely, for sure.
Oh, I appreciate that. Thanks for the plug. And you're invited.
I'll be there.
Come on by.
Absolutely.
That's great.
So let's talk a little bit about, the critique I hear sometimes is, hey, some people have this extraordinary taste.
Yeah.
They just know this microphone should be designed a certain way. They're not going to A/B test it. And, Steve Jobs, I think, would probably be the pinnacle of and I mean, I think he might have said on a couple occasions, the audience doesn't know.
Yeah, customers don't know what they want. That's a fact.
So what's your response to that sort of way of thinking?
Yeah, it's funny. A lot of entrepreneurs come up to me and they're like, well, Steve Jobs would do X or Steve Jobs would do that. I'm like, that may be true, but I mean, let's be honest, you ain't no Steve Jobs.
Yeah.
So even if it is true, is that necessarily the advice that you want to follow? And that, most people are like, okay, but then of course every once in a while someone's like, oh, I'm going to be the next Steve Jobs. And it's like, okay, so here's the question. Here's my question. If you have that incredible taste, if you're completely convinced that you're correct, first question, what could it hurt to double check? Like, what's the harm? Since you're completely right, the first test we do is going to show that you're overwhelmingly correct. And then you get into a real conversation about like, well, I'm confident, but, it's like, okay, well then let's have a real conversation about what do you honestly believe and what do you know? And some people have really grandiose, like, almost like bizarre beliefs about their product. For example, my favorite is, everyone is going to love my product. Every single person. Now, if you actually watch the interviews with Steve Jobs, he was not delusional. People talk about the reality distortion field. Like, he was very analytical in his approach. But people have these beliefs. They're like, I'm the next Steve Jobs. Everyone's like my approach. And I like those kind of crazy beliefs because they are the ultimate easy, falsifiable hypotheses in science. If everybody is going to love your product, then also 10 people will love your product, just logically speaking. And since you said it was everyone, it'll be the first 10 people I see. So we'll just grab the first row here, and we'll see if any of them will buy your product. And let's find out for real. Most like so-called visionaries, you suggest that to them, they run for the hills. Now, here's the interesting thing. So I used to be the end of the story until I read a book that came out recently about the Android iPhone wars. And I'm forgetting the name of the book. Someone probably shouted out. And they had a whole story about the launch of the iPhone. It's such an iconic moment. Everyone remembers Steve on the stage holding the iPhone, right? And here's a couple things I did not know about it before. First was, guess how many iPhones they had ever manufactured to date at the time they did that demo? What's that? Yeah, none that they had manufactured. They'd hand-assembled something like 8 of them. 7 of them were in the podium on stage with him because the one in his hand crashed so often. The idea was he could hot swap it. The cellular radio in the phone crashed so frequently that they had to hard code 4 bars. If you watch carefully, he gets great signal in the Moscone Center where you're like, wait a second, that doesn't sound right to me. Because it's hard coded. The thing is just crashing and rebooting constantly. And my favorite part is he was the master of the demo. And he's so nonchalant. He's like, oh, let me call my friend Phil, and like pulls up the content. Every step every tap on the phone was so carefully scripted, the engineers had what they called the golden path. That if he deviated in any way from the golden path, the phone would crash. So he practiced every tap. It's like completely orchestrated because the thing in his hand is not actually a functioning phone at all. It barely, barely, barely works. Now, if that's not a minimum viable product, I don't know what is. And ask yourself, could you buy the iPhone the day they did the demo? Anyone remember? No, of course not. They hadn't manufactured any. They didn't have any to sell. But if nobody was lining up at the stores, and they had people had been like, that thing sucks, I'm not buying it, then like they could have, like, it would have been very useful information for their manufacturing process. So people talk about, Steve as kind of this like paragon of ignoring what customers want, but I think that's not really the right lesson. He just was very careful about how he did his experiments, and a lot of the experimentation he did was, behind closed doors under NDA because, he's a very famous person. The nice thing for most of the entrepreneurs that are listening now, or like I said, for your friend's company, is you ain't no Steve Jobs. So when you launch your product, the president is not going to call you to congratulate you. In fact, nobody cares. So that's a huge asset. Like the reason these big companies have to be super secretive is that like if they do anything, it's major news and it's a whole thing and it causes all kinds of trouble. Right, stocks go up and down, like it's a whole problem. Like the obscurity that we enjoy as entrepreneurs is a huge asset. And I feel like startups don't take enough advantage of that.
Let me ask you about a couple of the techniques. One of which I think is super interesting. I see some startups do, some enlightened startups, I think, which is, user testing, even the most basic ones of going to a cafe and just walking up to somebody fearlessly and saying, I'm an entrepreneur. Can I show you what I've built and get your feedback on it? Maybe I can buy you a coffee. Yeah. What do you think of these sort of really lightweight techniques? How to execute them well?
The lighter weight, the better, because like I said, if your product is amazing, you'll get instant confirmation, and if it's not, you'll find out something useful. Now, if you actually do that, so first of all, most people I meet just don't have the courage to talk to a stranger about their startup. And I'm like, if you can't do that, maybe this is not the right career for you. I mean, no offense. I mean, I'm an introvert. I really don't like doing it too, but like being an entrepreneur, I mean, it sucks. Okay, can we all just acknowledge it's like a very, very hard road, and you have to do things far, far more unpleasant than talking to somebody in a coffee shop. So
laying somebody off, firing somebody, telling somebody you can't meet payroll. These things are all harder than asking somebody at a cafe to look at your product.
And we live in a time people are like, oh, pivot, like that's so great. But like if you've ever actually done a startup pivot, especially one that actually required to make dramatic changes to your personnel, to your strategy, to like go back to people and say, listen, I told you this was going to work and we should all believe, and I was wrong. You never see that scene in the movies. In the movies, everything always works out fine. But like in real life, like those are incredibly painful moments. I mean, some of the most unpleasant moments of my entire life. They're very vivid for me. So first of all, have the courage to do it. Now, here's what will happen. When I was an engineer, I remember a product I was making once where we did a usability test. And one of my co-founders had gone out, recruited someone to come into our office to do the test. Customer sat down. We gave them a gift card or some kind of reward for being there. And we said, okay, we explained the product and the value proposition. Now you need to download it and type in your credentials and whatever. And they were like, no, thanks. I was like, I'm sorry. We're paying you to be here, so you have to do it. That's kind of what a usability test is, not to be a jerk about it, and they were like, you can keep your money. Your product is so bad, you literally could not pay me to use it. Okay, that's the real thing people are afraid of. It sucks. Now, I was the engineer. What did I say? You know exactly where this is going? I looked to my guy who had arranged the test. I was like, you suck at your job. Where did you find this random person? I mean, this person, like, obviously is crazy.
Trolled.
Yeah, get this guy out of here. Fire that customer. Give me another one. Okay. Second customer comes in. Same thing happens. Now I'm like, you are really bad at this. Okay, like, well, I'm trying to do a usability test and you can't. Third customer comes in. Same thing happens. What do I say? You almost say it with me. That's not a statistically significant sample.
Yeah. 100%.
It's like, it's so like the excuses and the excuses and the excuses. It's like, listen, you have even people with a very rudimentary understanding of statistics can understand that what we learned from those three customers was very significant. Now, if you're afraid to find that out, then this road is not for you. But if you can really if you can visualize yourself, that's why a lot of people who adopt lean startup, it's not on their first startup, but on their second startup or third. Because like when you really, the overconfidence, like first startup I did, you couldn't have talked me into lean startup. I knew everything. I was right about everything. I knew, I was way too arrogant for it. And, it took some humility for me to say, wait a minute, let me visualize myself 6 months, 12 months, 18 months from now, having spent all my money that I've raised, having completely and utterly failed because I didn't find this critical thing out. How will I feel about my younger self who was too chicken to do a usability test? Right? I'm not going to have very kind thoughts about it. So like, I don't want to have that regret. So therefore, I'll do the test. So like, yeah, what they call in the UX world, the paper prototype, very easy to simulate the experience. But I'll give you another story. This is from a big company that adopted Lean Startup, American company, medical device manufacturer. They wanted to take one of their American, very expensive devices and take it to rural China. So as you can imagine, a lot of American companies, when they try to go into the developing world, they don't have the right cost structure. They have the American arrogance. They don't make it locally right. So they were really struggling with that. And they put a team on the ground in China to do this. And they came to Lean Startup workshop that I was doing, and we kind of talked about their plan. And I was like, listen, I don't know anything about medical devices, but tell me your plan. Their plan was they were going to spend 36 months and $20 million to build this thing for China in America, which they were going to launch with great fanfare all over China. I was like, I don't know anything about medical devices, but I know that plan very well. So step into my office. This I'm very familiar with. I have done that too many times, seen so many startups. So let's talk about an alternate way. Now, so we talked about what would be the minimum viable product for this device. Now, medical devices are a special category because in general, they're regulated and you can't pre-sell them. So the simple tests you would do, like, hey, let's do a Kickstarter campaign for our medical device and make it available for pre-orders, in most countries illegal, and China included. So what we needed to find was what is the exchange of value with the customer that can give us scientifically sound evidence that they actually like the product. So they, when they would go talk to doctors, even in rural China, and they would say, hey, we have this great product, and you can understand the cultural context here. Every customer they talked to was like, oh, yes, very nice product, yes. Love it. Oh, absolutely. You'd say, would you want to buy it? Oh, for sure. And whatever you ask, oh, yes, very nice. And customers do that. They don't want to be rude. They don't want, they're trying to be nice. So we came up with this experiment. They took an iPad, or probably a cheap Android knockoff, so some kind of like tablet computer, and they built like the wireframes of what the UX of this device would be. So this is not a functioning prototype in any sense. It's just strictly paper prototype. But you could see the UX. They could show you what it would look like as you diagnose patients. So it was a functioning thing. They took it to doctors. Doctors said, oh, it looks great. They said, excellent. Since it looks so great, we have here a letter for you that we've pre-drafted from you to the administrator of your hospital, recommending that the hospital purchase this device when it is eventually ready. And could you sign right here? Now, I took this to 10 doctors. Are you going to be shocked by what I'm about to say? 0 of the 10 doctors, after just saying how great it was 5 seconds ago, can't find a pen to sign with. I have to go, right? I left something. Because, then the real evidence starts to come out, right? So all we're talking about is like, what is something simple and easy that we can do to start to get a sense of whatever our non-technical assumptions are about the customer? Are they even remotely right or not? And then they didn't just give up after 10 customers crapped all over their idea. Then they did them in cohorts of 10 so that they went back, changed the value proposition, changed the UI, came back. The next time I think it was like 2 out of 10 and then 3 out of 10 and 4. And they kind of worked their way up to something like 8 out of 10 before they went on to the next stage of development.
Okay, when we get back from this commercial break, it's a very important message. I want you to talk a little bit about the darkest moment you had as an entrepreneur and how you contextualize it now, having so much distance from it, when we get back on This Week in Startups. Hey everybody, let me tell you a little bit about InVision app. I use InVision app all the time with my designer, my product manager, my growth team to share mock-ups of our products. We take those mock-ups and we design them and we send them to clients, to partners, to investors. And we say, here is an InVision link. Open this on your iPhone, on your Android phone, and you can click through and see what this product that we're making is like. And when we're building websites, hey, put your comments on there. We have a partner. We have a big Smart Camp thing going on with IBM, Smart Camp 2015. We can use InVision to share that website and say, hey, is there anything you want to change? And then have a threaded discussion. You can take all those discussions off of email, all those discussions out of the chat room. Listen, email and chat rooms have their place, but not in product design. InVision is like Slack, but for product design, right? So you have Slack for a general conversation. You have Gmail for asynchronous communication. You have InVision for product excellence. You cannot make a great product without InVision. I am dead serious about that. Every startup I invest in, I show it to them. They ask them to send me links, and boy, does it work. It supercharges everything you do. I love this product. I love this product. I love this product. Get out of email, get out of chat rooms, and do what Twitter, Airbnb, Evernote, Adobe, and many more are doing. Prototype what you're doing in InVision. It just makes designers and teams and founders so much more efficient. Go to invisionapp.com/twist for 90 days free. That's their starter plan, free for 90 days, only at invisionapp.com/twist, invisionapp.com/twist. And everybody thank InVision App on Twitter. I thank them for making a great product and for supporting independent media like This Week in Startups. Let's get back to this amazing episode. everybody, we're back with This Week in Startups. My guest is Eric Ries, thanks to our sponsor, Samsung and WeWork, for hosting us. All right, very good. You guys are losing it. This is the universal sign for a big stop. Okay, anyway, listen. Eric, when we left for the commercial break, we were talking about the dark moments.
Yeah.
And you're an entrepreneur now, but you're really like a guru, like a teacher. You're kind of like a Yoda, Obi-Wan type. I look at you that way.
I'll take that as a compliment, I think.
Well, I didn't say Anakin.
Yeah. Thank you.
You've got this Obi-Wan type thing going on. So you sleep well at night, don't you? Not having to be like the entrepreneur that, has like the startup running out of cash every week.
Oh, yeah. Well, I try to I try to split my life between the kind of like thinking and talking and this kind of stuff, and then keeping my hands dirty on the entrepreneurial side. So I don't sleep as well as you might imagine. But I subscribe to the Peter Drucker quote. I think he said that people call me a guru because I can't spell charlatan. I just thought that was so right on. Like, I'm a reluctant participant in this. I'm still an engineer by training. I grew up programming computers, and this is like a very odd way to make a living to me. So I always try to make sure, like I feel like people, they want someone else to give them the answer, and especially for entrepreneurs. And I really think Peter Thiel did a good job making this point recently, kind of going back to say every startup is really fundamentally unique. So there's no template, there's no step-by-step guide. So you really have to be willing to think for yourself. Now, I think that even when you're thinking for yourself, you should use scientific principles to prevent yourself from, being delusional. But even that is a scientifically testable theory, which you should test in your own life before you take anybody's word for it.
What about being delusional being an asset? Because a lot of the times I talk to older founders, I get the sense that they will not take on certain projects because their experience in life correctly points them to the fact that that is going to be brutally hard.
Yeah.
And then I speak sometimes to a younger entrepreneur, and they're like, no, we're totally going to disrupt this industry. And you're like, oh my God, you have no idea exactly how hard it's going to be to run, a hotel that doesn't pay hotel taxes in 400 cities. Like, you know what you're getting yourself into. Airbnb probably would be hard for, somebody with 30 years experience.
No, I mean, being crazy is the best competitive advantage there is.
Explain.
Because like whenever I work on a project that people respond to as like, that's crazy. I'm like, great, well then no one else will be crazy enough to try it. So I won't have any competitors. That's awesome. So listen, it may still be a bad idea, but like worst thing you want is have a good idea that like 50 other people had at the same time, and that's a crowded space. I much prefer to stand alone. It's funny, in the academic research on this, so like people talk all about like what are the personality traits that make you a great entrepreneur. There's this funny finding they found when they look at just the research on this. There's personality traits that make you more likely to become an entrepreneur. And then there's personality traits that make you more likely to succeed as an entrepreneur. And they tend to be inversely correlated. What I mean is there's one that is something like, I can't remember the academic speak for it, but it's like ability to ignore inconvenient facts. The academic speak for
reality distortion.
Right. So that is something that will make you more likely to become an entrepreneur, but actually becomes a liability once you are an entrepreneur. And I think that's, of course, why we see a lot of like startup co-founding pairs where you have kind of a more visionary type person and a more level-headed type person. So I think a certain amount of kind of craziness is necessary. But people think of most entrepreneurs as risk takers. We talk about how that like these crazy delusional people, but like the entrepreneurs, when I meet them, they're not looking to take risks. They're actually quite risk averse. They just see something that other people don't, and they're trying to find the highest probability way of making it happen.
They're actually about eliminating risk. They're avoiding and just building into the product.
If you really passionately believe, like people forget that the part one of the Lean Startup of the book is called vision. Like a vision is still the primary and most important thing. If you believe in your vision truly passionately, then I think you got to say, this is actually too important for the world to be left to a faith-based initiative. Right? Like the world deserves to have this be tested and for have to all the risks taken out. And many of the techniques that we talk about in improving the odds of startup success, they don't improve it from 0 to 100%. I was like, if you can get from 0 to non-zero, that's pretty good. Or whatever percentage you are now, if you can make it 1% higher, that's a really big deal. So there's no guarantees, but why not try to eliminate every possible risk? And the entrepreneurs I respect the most are very conscious about what risks am I taking and what risks can I avoid.
Let's talk a little bit about growth. It seems like the lean startup really was about product market fit and getting people to build the product that consumers actually want and getting there quicker. My personal experience over the last couple of years, and I think you played a good role in this, is people actually are making better and better and better products that are actually connecting with audiences.
Nice
so
to
now
see.
we have a noise problem, too many startups, too much funding, because so many people are making great things. And really the challenge has become, how do I grow? What is my growth technique? What is my built-in viral, hook? What is my unfair distribution advantage?
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on growth in relation to the lean startup?
Yeah, well, so it's interesting. The parts of Lean Startup that are the most famous, and most of the people that talk to me about Lean Startup, like who blog about it, the criticisms I get, like a lot of people have heard about Lean Startup secondhand. They haven't actually bothered to Google it, let alone read the book. So they're kind of like, oh, I heard about Lean Startup and it means be cheap or whatever. And then you're like, well, if you'd read 3 pages of the book, you would have known that's not true. But okay, I'll try to be gracious about it, right? So a lot of that stuff is amplified by the noise factor of Silicon Valley. But if you actually do read the book, you'll discover a couple of things I think people don't know. First is we treat what we call the value hypothesis and the growth hypothesis as two co-equally important aspects of a startup. So I think that as much testing as you put into whether customers actually want your product, you also have to put that same level of testing and rigor into the question of, once I have a customer, how do I get another customer? And a lot of the text of the book is about the accounting and metrics and accountability and the kind of really boring management stuff that is required to build a company that functions that way. So sorry, it's kind of boring. And one of those concepts that doesn't really fit very well on a bumper sticker, but I think is critically important, is what I call the law of sustainable growth. There's a lot of quick, unsustainable hits of growth available, especially in these frothy times. You can, if you're good at the hype machine, if you're good at the publicity and the whatever, you can get quick hits of growth. And I think there are even some people who are so good at this, at kind of playing that game, that they raise a round of funding, use that to generate a hype event, use the growth that generates to raise the next round of funding to generate an even bigger hype event, and you can keep that going for quite a while. And let's be honest, it's only a matter of time before somebody figures out a way to get a true Ponzi scheme into one of these systems. Because if you just want growth, if that's all you care about, then Ponzi scheme actually grows very quickly.
Well, and
very
there
fast,
are people have been talking a little bit about this latest group of unicorns.
Right.
That some of them are built off of basically unique economics that are not sustainable. So if you're selling a $100 bill for $65,
yeah, it's a great business model.
It's a pretty great business model until you run out of $100 bills.
Yeah. So we'll see. I'm a big believer in winter is coming. So I just try to keep that in mind, I don't know when, I don't know how, but
it always comes.
Yeah, it always comes. These things never last. And you are always well served, I think, by being cognizant of making sure that everything you do is value creating, and just being very rigorous about that. Doesn't mean be timid. Doesn't mean, if you see an opportunity, if you have the evidence to support an opportunity, don't pursue it relentlessly, but be rigorous in your thinking, and that will prepare you well for the days when winter comes. But going back to the law of sustainable growth, it's very simple. It's a situation where new customers come from the actions of past customers. It's really simple. So I talked to a TechCrunch reporter and got a big PR spike. Doesn't count. Doesn't help you at all. I came up with some really clever SEO hack that gets me an extra 100 customers a day. Doesn't count. What does count is, for example, I make $1 from a customer, it costs me 50 cents to acquire a customer, and I reinvest. So every customer I get gets me 2 more customers, and I let that flywheel turn, right? So the speed of that engine of growth, we call them, will be, the speedometer of it is, what is my marginal profit per customer? I told you it was going to be boring, sorry. But you were warned. So viral growth has the same thing. So viral growth happens when new customers are involuntarily recruited into the product because of the normal usage of regular products. So remember, the key to viral growth, the key concept is right in the name. It's a virus. It's not optional. Okay, virus is not about word of mouth. Word of mouth you can ignore. I remember use this example, when I first got TiVo, all I could talk about was how great TiVo was, and everyone in my family had to get a TiVo, and TiVo this, TiVo that. But people could be shut up about TiVo, and that was it. What could I do? I couldn't make them get a TiVo. But I remember the first time I used PayPal to send someone money. You get an email that says, Eric sent you $5, click here. I defy anybody not to click it. It's impossible. You have to click it. You want them, it's your money. You got to get it. So you have to register for PayPal as a side effect. So you get that email from Facebook. So-and-so has tagged you in a photo. Notice how they don't tell you which photo. Because it could be that one photo.
And you need to be a member.
You got to know, and you got to sign up for Facebook to find out. So
no free photos.
Like, true viral loop, right? And then there's a third engine of growth we call the sticky engine of growth, which is simply for products with extremely high retention, where the new customers are the old customers coming back. In each of those three engines of growth, you can analyze your business down to one metric that tells you how fast you're going to grow. And you can do that growth in good times and bad. It's not related to hype. It's not related to how much money you raise. It's a truly, I think, a more rigorous way of analyzing whether your startup is going to make it or not.
And so what is your advice for entrepreneurs operating in this time, which is to say a time when it feels like we're living in this age of excellence where so many people are going after the similar opportunities.
Yeah.
Consumers just don't seem to have any time left. It seems like people have the time for 7, 8 different apps. The number of TV shows they can binge watch is just hitting all-time proportions. Gosh, even movies look like they're getting pretty good. It seems like everybody's optimized every aspect of our life to the point at which everything is awesome.
Yeah.
What do you do in this age of excellence when everything is awesome?
Well, first of all, enjoy it. Okay, like you don't have to be a disruptor. Okay, like there's no law. You could just get a regular job and whatever. But if you have some like burning problem that you think is truly unsolved in this world, then everything is not awesome for somebody out there, right? There's some set of people who have a very severe problem, and I think a lot of entrepreneurs who get into it for wrong reasons, and I count myself into this. I first got an entrepreneur. I didn't really understand why I was doing it. It was just like the cool thing to do and a good way to make money and seemed like a fun, I really did not have a deep appreciation for what I was getting myself into.
You didn't actually consider what you were about to do.
Yeah, I didn't. It's hard for me even to get into the head of that kid who did that, but I didn't really understand why. It just seemed cool. I was like, why not?
Like starting a band.
Yeah, exactly. And just as rational probably. I probably had just as much talent as I would have had if I'd started a band too. Like I was terrible at it and I didn't know what I was doing and it was a horrible experience. But if you really believe that you're solving a problem that's important, then all you have to do, you can filter all the noise out, find people who have a problem that's so severe that they're willing to get a product from you. But you think about that, that's pretty crazy. Most product categories, most products are pretty good, to Jason's point. So why would anybody buy a product from an unknown startup? You'd have to be pretty desperate.
So find
somebody who's really desperate for your solution, right? Someone who, I was just talking to a startup that I'm excited to invest in that has a product that helps people manage lupus. They have lupus as a disease, and it solves a problem for them. I don't want to get into the medicine of it. It doesn't matter. But it was everything is awesome for me as a affluent white guy living in San Francisco. I'm living the dream. But I can imagine a lot of people out there that life is not as awesome for. And so with a startup that's targeting them, it's make something that really makes their lives a lot better. And what I wouldn't worry about, I made this mistake early in my career too. I always wanted to go after a big market. I was find me something with a lot of people in it. And if someone had told me here's a very narrow slice of the world that really needs your thing, I would have been too small, too small, too small. But every big thing in this world started small. So you're much better off with a relatively small number of people who love your product and absolutely need it, crave it, desire it, than you are with a large number of people who feel relatively indifferent about it.
In the early stages of Uber, nobody wanted to invest in that company.
Yeah.
Because people just thought it was too hard to manage, and so it was had that craziness. You'd have to be crazy right to want to be in the taxi business.
Yeah, what a horrible business.
I just had this flash of I think one of the original pitches was when it's raining or you live in Brooklyn.
Yeah.
Or it's raining and you live in Brooklyn, to think about the amount of pain to be in that situation and not be able to get a taxi cab and having to get on the subway or whatever is pretty extreme. All right, we're going to go to question and answer now. We have a microphone somewhere and a stand. And can I ask, whatever that is making that noise over the refrigerator, if it's this, it might be the refrigerator, just turn it off. Yeah, go ahead and turn that off. Perfect. Isn't that better?
Magic. Ask and ye shall receive. That is awesome.
I remember I said in the beginning, sound is so important. It's All right. Now, I know people have a lot of questions. I'm going to ask that you come up and a couple of ground rules on the questions. no commercial during a question. If somebody goes into that commercial thing where they're like, oh yeah, Eric, let me ask you about my law firm, which provides incredible legal resources for people who are starting companies. How would we lean startup my law firm?
Please do not do that.
If you do that, everybody's instructions are to hiss and go, oh, everybody just groan. But if you ask a really good question, then everybody should be, give you a nice applause.
I like they get the SM58, but we get the SM7B. So,
Exactly.
yeah.
We're not. Yeah. All right, here we go. Let's. Who's got a question? Come on now. I know there's hundreds of people who want to answer a question here. And it could also be, hey, here's my idea for a business. How would you go about, evolving it?
Sure, yeah.
So it's okay to mention your business if it's in relation to the question. Oh, here we go. Okay. Okay.
Eric, you just did your Kickstarter. How do you think about things that have a fixed point in time, like a Kickstarter in the lean startup, where you're trying small things, but some things you can't, you have to just get out of the gate with it?
That's a great question. I'll restate it in case we didn't pick up the microphone, which is, hey, your Kickstarter was a limited amount of time. You don't have a lot of time to do a lot of iterating.
Right.
How do you manage something like that where the clock is ticking?
Yeah, there's two really important things to look at with that. The first is a Kickstarter campaign is an MVP all by itself. It's an experiment to figure out, like for me, I was very serious. If people didn't back this campaign, I was not going to write this book. Because why am I going to write a book that nobody wants to read?
What did your publisher think of this, or did you have a publisher?
I did have a publisher. It required extensive negotiations because I thought I was absolutely crazy. And I really had to help them understand that that this campaign was going to make the book that they had bought dramatically more valuable. Because we're going to have, like, when you're writing a book with 10,000 allies, it's a very different thing than when you're writing it by yourself. And that means that there's like a guaranteed level of success and enthusiasm in the community. It means the book is more likely to be successful. And the good thing was, like, I had done a lot of these same techniques in writing the Lean Startup. There's a whole backstory to like how I try to use the ideas themselves in the creation of the book. And they thought I was even more crazy back then. And so I could kind of be like, and it's the same publisher who's publishing the new book. So I kind of go to them like, listen, you remember how I seemed like such a nut then and it worked out okay? So can you give me a little latitude on this one to just see if it goes? And of course, as it's gone really well, now they're like, hey, how can we apply that technique? There's other things that we do. So they've actually learned a lot from it.
Okay, let's take another question.
Hi, Eric. I have a quick question. We're a young startup in ed tech, and we've had more demand overseas than domestically in the U.S. Would you spend more time overseas, or would you build a foundation in the U.S. first? Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. And it's hard to answer these questions in the abstract because I think that like the details matter a lot. And so like I have like 50 questions for you, but maybe we can take it offline. Here's how I think about it. The first is there's no substitute for the like whatever your true vision and strategy is. So like there may be a reason why you're launching in the US that is strategically important and launching in another place would not be as effective. In which case you got to keep iterating and testing until you make that work or die trying. So you might say, look, there is a really good reason to do it, and you're like, until we've exhausted every possibility of making it work, we're going to make it work here. But if you're anything like me, the place you launch first is just the first place you thought of. Let's be honest. And I'll tell you a funny story. I once built a product, it was a communications product, and I was like, my target customer, I'd done the target customer exercise. So I had written down, target customer is like, I don't remember now, it's like a middle-aged, person who's married and has kids and da-da-da-da-da-da-da. And so that's my target. All my marketing, every decision keyed at this target customer. And because it's a communication product, I didn't have to go to a cafe. I could use the product itself to talk to the customers using the product itself. And the first, I boot up the product and I go get a person to talk to, and they would be some teenager. And I would be like, get out of here. I'm trying to talk to my target customer. And then another teenager would come up, and another teenager, and I would be like, you guys are clogging up my communications channel to my target customer. You need to stop. And then at a certain point, I was like, that is the dumbest thing I've ever said in my life. Like,
please stop using my product.
Yeah, stop using my product because it's like that. But no. So you talked about how unlikely it is that people would ever use a startup's product at all. So if someone is actually nutty enough to be an early adopter of a product, I feel like that's a very strong signal. So unless you have a very strong strategic reason not to do it, I would absolutely go where the customers are.
It's interesting too. I was talking to somebody from OpenTable.
Yeah.
And this is in a different era. But they said, we're going to launch in San Francisco, New York, Chicago, and DC, because these are the most important restaurant markets with the most expensive restaurants, the most Michelin stars, and we just have to figure out if this is going to work or not.
Yeah.
Just to show your point.
Uh-huh.
But then in this day and age, I had another company that went through the incubator, Requested, and they said, you know what, we're going to do everything in Sacramento because there's so many people knocking on the doors of restaurant owners in San Francisco that the second you come and say, I have an app, they're like, we have to deal with 20 different startups a week. We can't deal with anything more.
The number of like weirdo payment systems in most cafes in Soma is getting out of control, right? You're like, what do you?
You're like, Dogecoin?
Yeah, I was like, I don't know. I don't even understand like what these things are. So yeah, it's getting crazy.
There's a good Portlandia skit in that. Which
I know,
is just
totally.
like everybody lining up to use and asking like, do you use Dogecoin? Do you use Bitcoin? Do you use Ripple? Oh no.
Yeah, exactly.
No, we don't take money. We don't.
Yeah,
don't
someone's
take
like,
actual
can I
cash.
give you $1 to buy this? Yeah, it'd be very much.
No, we take Dogecoin though.
Yeah, Dogecoin.
All right, here we go.
Hey, Eric. So a small preface. I bet a lot of us are here because we want to build a great startup. We want to get a seed round and then eventually get an A round. Do you find an inherent contradiction between the concepts that you have to incrementally build, and then we're all here and saying, well, we want to take this inorganic round of financing that by definition is not testable to the fact that we take this on and that we can know with confidence that we can continue to grow in that same sequential model?
Yeah, that's a good question.
That's a really good question, Dave.
Yeah, and so the first question is why raise money at all? Like, why do we raise money? And most people ask the question, they're like, I need to eat, dude. Like, what are you asking me? But it's like, okay,
Hello.
yeah. But remember, like, it's a historical anomaly that the majority of entrepreneurs today are not independently wealthy. Okay, like it used to be, if you wanted to do a startup, like you had to be able to support yourself in the long, lean years before you were ever going to be able to get outside funding, unless you had like very good friends who could make that happen. Like you'll read the biographies of Henry Ford or like people that are we know their names today. Well, the experience we're having of like mass production of startups is very unusual. So I think it's a valid question. Why do we raise money? Now, my feeling is if you take that engine of growth concept seriously, the only time you should raise money is when you have a bottleneck in the engine of growth that you need to remove, that you can remove with a fixed cost. So like the problem we're having with these unicorns with bad unit economics is they're basically taking all this money and just spending the money down to build up their scale. And that's not sustainable. But if you actually have sustainable growth, so for example, let's say you're Facebook, and the flywheel of your sticky product is so strong and the viral growth is so strong that customers are signing up faster than you can rack servers, then if you had to make the customers pay for that in order to buy more servers, that would mess up the engine of growth. So raise money to buy servers, but servers are not, it's not exactly a fixed cost, but it's pretty close to a fixed cost compared to what ultimately you think is going to work for the startup. So I think that that's the kind of like theoretically correct answer. But like I'm trying to get to like what's the question behind the question here. So like I kind of feel like what you're saying. I mean, maybe I'm wrong here, but it's like a lot of VCs are assholes. And no offense to many of my best friends are VCs, but a lot of them are assholes. And especially they feel that way to entrepreneurs who are like, I got this amazing idea, and you're being a jerk about not seeing it. And I was, it's like I have so many flashback memories of sitting around that long table with the partners, and they're just like crapping all over your idea, and you're like, come on, man, this is like just give me a break. I thought you were supposed to be visionary, but they're like trying to stress test it to see if it's any good. Now, and so as a result, people have that experience of like, well, I want to get good pitching advice. I get better at pitches. I want to go through a program to learn, and that stuff is good to do. But what they forget is like some of the best, most important startups in history, the pitch was really bad. I mean, back Facebook is like a famous example because like so many people are mad about like what a jerk Zuck was at the time. But it's like if you have the evidence that your thing is a good idea, the pitch doesn't matter. Like all that other stuff goes away. It doesn't matter. And like the guys can be great guys, assholes, whatever. The evidence is what matters. And when they raised their money in Silicon Valley, Facebook, I can't remember the stats now, but they're all over the press. They were bragging about it even then. Half the customers use it every day. And when they went to a new campus, I think it took on average 2 weeks to take over the campus. So it's like you don't have to be a genius to extrapolate that math to say there's something really exciting here. So Lean Startup would say, where do you get that evidence? What are the leading indicators that really matter for the future? And we have a structured way of thinking about that. And that can then create a rational venture pitch. It can say, look, we're asking to make an investment decision on the basis of some kind of rational expectation. That is not the only way to raise money. And in fact, lots of other people raise money on the basis of hype, on the basis of how they look, on the basis of good rapport with someone. I mean, like there's
previous exits.
Yeah, there's like so much stuff going on in the ecosystem right now. So many different, and I don't begrudge anyone their success. People who, like I benefit because like I look the part, So if you look the part, like that makes everything easier for you. That's just a fact.
Yeah.
And if that channel is open to you, then go nuts. But I think that as an ecosystem, we would be better off if we could make more and more and more of our financing decisions on the basis of scientifically sound inference. And that's really what Lean Startup is about.
I will say, I think the Lean Startup has had an impact on this because just 3 or 4 years ago, a lot of times it was, who are you in the deck? And then, take me through your product, walk me through the product. And now a lot of times people are like, well, I read who you are and I know the product because I used it. Tell me how you're going to grow this and show me your key metrics and what percentage of people use it every week of the people who've downloaded it, right?
Yeah.
So we are moving to a, as we say in poker, card speak.
Yeah.
You turn over your cards at a certain point and all the bluffing and all the raising goes out the window and the cards just speak. Whoever has the better ones gets the pot.
Yeah.
And I think actually we're edging towards that where, and it's dangerous to talk about gender and race and all these other things, especially as a white guy, I've learned. But I do see...
Nothing pisses people off more.
But I do see a lot of people show up with, really great numbers, and the numbers...
they speak for themselves.
They speak for themselves. And a VC would literally knock over their grandmother to invest in the next Facebook. And it doesn't matter who is leading it, right? You would agree with that too.
Oh, totally. And what's so funny is I meet some VCs who are not as great, and they're always like talking about how they're going to invest in the next Facebook. And I'm like, dude, you wouldn't have even invested in the first Facebook. Because like your process is you're not looking at the right things, you're not asking the right questions, and you would have laughed, stuck out of the room. So give me a break. But I think like moving to a more meritocratic selection process is good for everybody. And so, not to wade into the debate about whether Silicon Valley is or is not a meritocracy, I think it's really stupid to think about that as a binary category, that like it is or it is not. It's a spectrum. It's an aspiration. It's something we can always be doing better at. And I think trying to be more metrics focused, trying to be more scientifically sound in our decision making, that pushes the whole ecosystem towards that. And you got to give Y Combinator a lot of credit. I know they've obviously taken all kinds of fire on this subject before, and they have had their own effects on the ecosystem as they have become really famous. But I can't remember, somebody was reposting, it's now 10 years since the first Y Combinator batch, and someone posted a link recently to Paul's original write-up of the first summer. It wasn't even called Y Combinator, it was called the Summer Founders Program, or whatever they called it, the first time I did it in Boston. And if you look at the things he talked about as an investor, the things he was looking for and what he saw in the program, you're like, everything he's saying in that post, we so take for granted now as like obviously what founders should do and obviously what a good VC would do. And just like, I don't know if he gets enough credit for the fact that at that time, I was raising money at that time from VCs. And I'm like, in retrospect, he was actually being much more radical than people realize. And he's had a very positive effect that way.
Yeah, he really wanted to see that people could build products that had product market fit.
Yeah.
At a time when people were looking at business plans.
Yeah, exactly.
Harvard,
like,
where'd you get
wow.
your MBA from? The other thing that's
astounding.
kind of interesting, David, in your question, I think, is I think the lump sum sort of like, why does it come in one big lump sum?
Yeah.
And I can sort of tell you the answer to that, which is once we realize, I'm an angel investor, so I'm not really percentage ownership, sensitive. But for VCs, they're going to make 10 bets every couple of years as an individual partner in a firm. And let's say they make a $4 million bet each time. They just want to maximize their bet each time. Well, the way to maximize the bet is to pick the best company, hopefully with metrics, and then own as much as possible. So it doesn't make sense. Like, well, if we're only burning $1 million a year, why are you giving me 4? And why do you want me to spend it faster? Like, well, I'm making 10 bets and I want to own 30%.
Yeah, exactly right.
And if I ask you for 70%, you'll say no. If I ask for 10%, you'll say yes. And I can convince you to get to 25, right? So that if it does turn out to be a winner, massive, massive reward. So it is illogical, but it's based on the needs of the VC.
This is flashing me back to a VC conversation I had in circa 2005, I think, 2006, something in that time horizon. And I had this really awesome graph in my VC pitch. It was a beautiful hockey stick shape, the perfect shape. And it went from like a couple hundred users a month and a couple thousand users a month up to like, I don't know what the top line, this is like a historical chart. I think the top line, if I remember right, we were making $8,000 a month. So we went from like $80 a month, $8,000 a month total. And I remember the VCs would look at this and they'd be like, this chart is awesome.
High five.
Yeah, what are the units on this chart? Is this in thousands, tens of thousands, or what? They're like, ready to write the check. And I'd be like, no, sir. This is in ones. Like, these are the actuals. No, and they're like, you're trying to raise $8 million with $8,000. And I was like, no, but look, the chart proves how much we've learned about customers. And of the VCs that we talked to in 2005, at least 90% of them like busted out laughing when we stayed, stuff like that. They're just like, thanks for coming in, kid. Like that is unbelievably stupid. And I was like, I still am very grateful to the VCs that had the vision at that time to like see past that. I mean, we didn't have lean startup vocabulary. We couldn't be like, this is a minimum viable product. Like, there wasn't that literacy about those kind of things. And for people to like, now I think that there's much more understanding even among VCs about the importance of that.
Okay, great job, David. Another question from the audience. Who's got another question? Go ahead, just run up to the microphone.
Come on down.
It's okay, you can walk in front of us. Okay, we can handle it.
We can handle it in post.
It's a
Hello, Eric.
podcast. It doesn't matter. It's not NBC.
So my question is about the MVP with a product that needs certain scale to be like really usable.
Such as? Is this about your friend's company or your company?
My company.
Could you just tell me what it is? It's okay.
Okay, we're working on a privacy-enabled tracking device, which will get like real usability when we get to the scale in which the network effect plays role.
So what is the network effect in this case?
People that use it, so they can detect the tracker. If it's like out of your immediate range, somebody steals your bicycle, brings it to Oakland. Some other user in Oakland is able to detect your bicycle, right?
Oh, the network effects, yeah. Network effects are they're painful. And the reason is there's a large number of products out there in the world that are amazing ideas at scale, but that have no path to get to scale. So those are just bad products. Like they would be great if like you could make a magic wand, everyone use a product already, it would be amazing. But you can't, so it's not. So every like multiplayer, success has to have some kind of single player mode or some way of like arranging a highly dense interconnected network. I mean, Facebook is actually a great example. In order for Facebook to work, you have to know the other people online. And in fact, there's these great interviews with Facebook's early competitors. There was one called, what was the one at Columbia called CU Network or something, CU something. There's an interview with one of the founders of one of these guys who launched a college-based social network before Facebook, and he launched a year earlier with more features and like better in every way. And then Facebook just completely ate his lunch. And he's like describing the experience of like, I just don't understand what happened. Like, I just seemed like I did everything right. It should be me. I should be the one in that movie. Like, I don't understand. But if you look at the details of what he did versus what Zuck did, you see that Zuck was way more rigorous in his thinking, had a much more like ambitious scaling plan, and just made better initial strategic choices. The number one most important of which is he launched only at the Harvard campus. And the CU network was launched for all campuses. So they had way more users than Facebook, but they didn't know anybody else on the system. Because if you're at Stanford, what do you care that there's people at Yale on there? Like, just irrelevant. You need to know if the people like in your class are there. So launching only on one campus made it much more valuable by kind of a densely interconnected place to pilot the effect. So with your app, you got to find an MVP that can prove that the network effect is real.
Okay, and launch let's say like pre-saturate the network in the place we're launching.
In one place, yeah. And
okay.
And find a place where people it might actually be this might be a college campus thing. If you have a geographically bounded area where people primarily go within the area, and therefore there's a high likelihood that the people you preceded will be near each other, the thing is more likely to be useful than if things are extremely diffuse. So that's the basic like the generic. That's the answer for you. The generic answer for network effects businesses is you have to prove that the network effect happens. Now, what people think about network effects, they see that it's an exponential growth curve, and they focus on, okay, when we hit the critical mass, then it goes, atomic. But it's not intuitive that during the flat part of an exponential curve, the exponential growth is still happening. Just the scale is really small. So you can easily measure that it's happening if you're rigorous about it. That's actually what the engine of growth framework is about. And like one of my favorite stories is Twitter is a great network effects business. When Twitter had something like 300 customers total, they were so embarrassed that their vanity metrics were so low, they offered some of their investors a chance to take their money back. Now, it's now controversial whether they really knew, and they were like cheating their investors or not. Like that's a controversy I can't wade into. I wasn't there. But what's so interesting about it is the evidence that they were looking at was not how many users do we have, but like how come of the 300 people, like 275 of them are like getting massive monthly phone overages because I think too many text messages, right? The level of passion and enthusiasm of the people on the network were unbelievable, even though, if we look back, that's the flat part of the hockey stick. So the question is, how do we create those leading indicators that help us understand that it's getting stronger and stronger and stronger over time as the network grows to give us confidence to take it to the next step?
And with yours, if you were talking about bicycles, the first thing that came to mind was, is there some fleet of bicycles out there like rented bikes
Oh,
to,
yeah, totally.
to tourists in Santa Monica or something, where you could get the bike company to put it on 100 bikes to start, and at least you have a
Yeah, sure.
part of it.
We have some idea to pre-saturate
Yeah.
the network.
Yeah,
pre-saturating
pre-saturated is a good idea.
Hey, good question.
Thank you.
I have a question for you as well, which is, when you look back on the book, what would you rewrite, change, or tweak? What are the top 2 or 3 things that you go, I read that and you know what, I was wrong, or I wasn't as fully right as I now know I was.
It's funny. I mean, I would love to rewrite the whole thing, to be honest.
Right. Top 3.
It's so painful. Like, I can't even read it now because, first of all, reading your own writing is a really painful experience. Just if those of you writers just know, like, you know, just like, I wrote what? I can't believe. Look, I think the bulk of it has stood up pretty well. What I realize now is, like, here's the interesting thing that's happened. When people first encountered Lean Startup, the first early adopters were people in tiny little startups, you know, that were just getting started and were very excited about concepts like minimum viable product, pivot, split testing, continuous deployment. Like, the bumper sticker things were, like, very popular. And I was talking about a management system for entrepreneurial management and innovation accounting and all this, like, boring. People were like, yeah, blah, 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 but tell me about the bumper sticker again. And at the time I was like, okay, that's great. So, you know, I was happy about that. Now, years later, many of those companies have now been successful. So a lot of those same founders in the last 2 years have companies that have 500, 1,000, 5,000, 10,000 employees or more. And a bunch of those people have called me up in recent years being like, hey, remember that thing you were talking about how to, like, have your company stay innovative even as it grows? Like, could we have another conversation about that? Could you just refresh my memory about it? Like there's the part of it that's about, like, the management science of how do you build an organization that does this on a continuous basis. I know so much more about that than I did then.
What stops those companies?
Oh, well, this is a whole topic unto itself. But here's my claim. So this is the thing that nobody believes. I spend my time with the GEs of the world these days. Like, I'm in big tech companies, big industrial companies, governments, and I've worked with all these companies that have tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of employees. And then I also work with these startups, not still guys in a garage, but also these ones that are post-product market fit. And they have the same problems. The stuff I talk to the CEO of a 10,000 person startup and a multi-100,000 person multinational are shockingly similar. And people are like, that can't be right. That company's 100 years old. That company's 5 years old. How can they have the same problems? But I'm just like, show me your org chart. Oh, look, it's the same org chart that Alfred Sloan was using in 1929. Like, it's the same old dumb org chart with functional silos. Work passes through the silos. And even though inside each individual silo, you can be very innovative and iterative. And you'd be like, look, in this silo, we're doing Agile. In this silo, we're doing DevOps. In this silo, you know. But, like, how does work flow through the whole company? It's rigid waterfall, pass the buck. It's the same old thing. And when you do that, you get the same old problems. So what I now understand, and Jason, we had a chance to talk about this last time I saw you, was there's a missing discipline, a missing function in most companies called entrepreneurship. It's like imagine you have an org chart that's like missing a box. Founders don't ever forget to have a marketing department. Like, you get around to it eventually. Like, everyone knows, gotta have finance, HR, legal, IT, like, we all know what the functions are. But, like, where did you learn that? How did you know it was supposed to be a marketing department? And can you believe that there was a time when people didn't know that? Now, a company with no marketing department would still do marketing activities, right? But they would be diffuse kind of all over the organization. It wouldn't be clear who was accountable for it. People who are really good at marketing would have a hard time getting hired and promoted because, like, they'd be in the engineering department and no one respects their skills. Different parts of the organization would do it differently, so you have inconsistency. You know, does this sound familiar to anybody?
Yeah.
So then I ask CEOs all the time, you want to be a company that stays entrepreneurial as you grow, that continues to innovate. Who's in charge of that? Who's in charge of it? Who's thinking about that every single day? Who's setting the standards for entrepreneurial decision making? How do you train people in entrepreneurial? The entrepreneurs inside your organization, what does their business card say? Oh, it says product manager. Is that the same job as entrepreneur? Would you have been excited to take a product management job yourself instead of founding this company? Oh no? Like, okay, so let's have a real conversation about who's in charge and what should the org chart look. Now, many of the things I just said, if you go back and reread the Lean Startup, you can kind of get some of those ideas. They're like vaguely in there. And what I realize now is there's a bunch of stuff in there that I just took so for granted that there's like one sentence or one paragraph. Like, one of my favorite was like, if you want to have internal startups as you scale, you got to have cross-functional, semi-autonomous teams that have, that are cross-functional, dedicated teams that have a stake in the outcome and they own the product that they build. That's what an internal startup looks like. I just said almost as much about it to you as is in the book. Like, that's a whole book by itself. I talk to organizations, they're like, I have to do what? Explain. Why should it be cross-functional? And Most of our companies are full of part-time committees. We're like obsessed with multitasking. There's all these, so it's like, we're like, okay, well, how do I convince HR to do that? How do I convince finance? How do I convince, and it's like, okay, there's a huge amount of detail that is required to build this new operating system. And, so when I look back on the lean startup, I'm like, there's just a lot of things that seem very sloppy to me now.
What do you
need to
think
be
of this
fixed.
holocracy? I had Tony Shea on the program recently, and it seems like it's got some similar concepts to what you're talking about.
I'll be really honest. I don't know a ton about it, and I
don't think the guy who founded it knows a ton about it. It's sort of like he sort of just did this general framework, and Tony's trying to deploy it.
Yeah, it's interesting. I'm so hesitant to comment on anything I read in the press because, like, I read the companies that I work with, I read their press, and I know what's really going on, and I'm like,
big distance.
It's just like very, so like you never know what's
art.
really going on behind the scenes. I try to be hesitant about it.
Yeah.
I will tell you my favorite joke about holocracy, which is from my friend Robert Sutton, who's a professor at Stanford Engineering. He said, well, people say holocracy means everybody's the same, but he's like, I can prove to you that there's at least two categories of people in holocracy. There's the guy who said we're going to do a holocracy and everybody else.
Yeah.
That was pretty funny. And here's the thing. People assume that being decentralized is required for entrepreneurial creativity to thrive in a company. But I have seen the evidence that some of these really top-down, rigid command and control type companies can embrace this just fine. The layers, the fact that people are disciplined in taking instruction and have clear accountability for things is not as big a liability as you would think if you use that hierarchy to push the product decision making to the correct level. So if you use your command and control system to tell everybody what to do and what to think, yeah, that's bad, and you get bureaucracy and all these problems. But if you use that to say, we are going to officially set up an entrepreneurial unit here. Here's a 5-person team. Here's the clear rules about what they're allowed to do and not do. And everybody else, you need to leave them alone, says the big boss. If you have a functioning hierarchy, that works really well. People are like, oh, yes, sir, I'll leave them alone. They're like, hey, that's, in companies that are super decentralized and distributed, that actually can be a really hard thing to achieve. So yeah, I don't know that how rigid the structure is necessarily the right thing. But I don't even know if that's a valid thing to say about holocracy, because all I know about is what I read in the press.
The Leader's Guide will be released at some point in the next year, I think. You're writing it.
ASAP, as soon as I finish writing it.
How is it going? Are you struggling with this one a little bit?
I am struggling for sure.
What are you struggling with?
It's interesting. So I started the Kickstarter campaign. I made a schedule because you're supposed to like tell people when it's going to be shipped. Sure. And like even who are you talking to? Of course, I know that schedules slip and we don't know. But like I figured it was going to be okay because most of the material that I thought would be in the Leader's Guide comes from existing material that I use with my corporate clients. So I have like workshop material and case studies and all kinds. I have a huge pile of material to begin with. I figured I'll just hire an editor. We'll sit down. We'll get this thing into some kind of shape and we'll ship it out. That'll be fine.
Ship it out.
Now that was when I thought like we were going to have like a couple hundred backers and it was going to be, like it was not going to be a thing. And so even I was kind of like, uh-oh, like, this is actually a little bit bigger than I thought. And I started to be like, try to see it as an opportunity to do a better job. So I hired case writers and researchers and started to like interview all kinds of entrepreneurs, try to build in more case studies and I just totally scope creep myself to death. And it's like, even I am like a victim of scope creep. I'm so embarrassed. So it got way bigger and way more complicated than I thought. And so it should have been done by now and it's not. So I'm working on it. But what I realized is, first of all, that's the nice thing about Kickstarter. Like I do get angry emails every once in a while from cranky people because it's on the internet, but the vast majority of people want this to succeed and have been like very, very supportive. Yeah. And then I was like, there's no publisher, there's no editor, there's no deadline, there's no like external, there's no VC, I'm not accountable to anybody except my customers. So if they like the final product and they don't mind that it took a few months longer, then like I can do whatever I want.
Yeah, you can make 2 books.
Yeah, I mean, I have thought about that. It is exploding out of control. But I think but it's funny. Like just this week, I feel like I got it into a structure that is going to work. So I'm starting to feel like okay, we will get it done relatively soon. But then of course, like once you get it done, then you have to actually get it printed, and it's a whole thing. So it probably will not ship to customers this year. But I'm hoping early in next year. It's like
who cares? I mean, as long as you get it right? I mean,
yeah, I felt like it's more important to get it right than it is.
And you have a big act to follow. I mean, the Lean Startup.
Well,
is
that's
like,
certainly true.
It's people's Bible. People really respect it. So you should take a couple extra months.
Well,
I think it's a good idea.
And the thing is that this is supposed to be the MVP. So like the whole idea of this is I'm going to write a big mainstream, like official successor to the Lean Startup that will come out whenever I get around to writing that book. And the idea is to take ideas that I want to include into that book and put them in the MVP so that people can test them out on their own. So what I'm really excited about is the opportunity to really be sure that what I'm saying works. And not just it worked for me, But to put this book, the leader's guide, put it in people's hands and say, try this at home and report back what happens. So if this turns out, if things don't go the way it says in the book,
you can rev it.
Yeah, we can actually not rev the leader's guide, because that thing is ephemeral, but actually rev the concepts to make sure that even after they're translated into book form and people read it off the page, they still get the gist of it. And that goes all the way back to this question about like the misunderstandings in lean startup. Like, I've really come to take that stuff seriously. I think a lot about when I see someone misunderstanding what I've written, could I have done a better job explaining it better? Could the book have been more clear about it? Could, what could we have done to help people prevent that from happening? Because even though, of course, there's always going to be a certain amount of misunderstanding, and there's a lot of people out there that are willfully ignorant, and, I want to punch them in the face and blah, blah, blah. Like, when you strip all that ego away, those of us who do this kind of a job, I think, have an ethical obligation to make sure that what we're telling people actually helps them. Otherwise, what are we getting paid for exactly? So.
Yeah, it's kind of heady, because people are looking to you and they're going to make decisions based on your advice. As opposed when the lean startup came out, which was like, hey, listen, I had some experiences and here's my view of the world.
I didn't expect anybody would take it that seriously.
I think it's a great evolution, for you as an individual to take it so seriously and to realize, God, you got a big audience now.
Yeah.
All right, listen, this has been amazing. We could talk for hours, but you've said it all. And more. So let me just take a moment to thank Samsung's Global Innovation Center, WeWork, and my whole team, Jacob, Jackie, everybody.
Yeah, thank you guys very much.
They do a great job. And let me hear it one more time for Eric Ries.
No, thank you.
And we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Thank you, sir.